Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our third annual Human Rights Day program. Human Rights Day is recognized annually on December 10th. My name is Allie Rosenberg.
And my name is Stacy Science, and together we're the co-chairs of the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee. On behalf of our committee and the students of the Horace Greeley Club, Enough, we welcome you to tonight's program.
Through tonight's program and listening to the stories of each of our panelists, we hope you will leave understanding the plight of refugees and inspired to help create a more welcoming community.
It is our pleasure to introduce you to the co-presidents of Enough.
Good evening. I'm Jack Rosenberg.
And I'm Elliot Science. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was the result of the experience during the Second World War. As a response to the Holocaust during World War II, the international community took steps to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again. To that end, on December 10th, 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted. As students, we have a responsibility to educate ourselves and others on the importance of human rights. The recognition of Human Rights Day is important to our club and our club's mission, is to empower students to stand up to hate and develop a community of tolerance through education and the understanding of people's differences.
We hope the stories shared tonight will inspire you to stand up for human rights for everyone. Tonight's panelists are Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee member Anuja Joshi, Westchester County Legislator Vedat Gashi, and Westchester County resident Svitlana Kolobova. Before we begin tonight's program, we would like to invite up our principal, Dr. Seppi, to stand alongside us as we share words from our neighbors, President and Secretary Clinton. We are grateful for the chance to extend warm greetings to all those gathered in Chappaqua this evening for the third annual Human Rights Day program. Rarely has the need for compassion and understanding been more urgent than it is now when anti-Semitism, authoritarianism, and discrimination are on the rise across the country and across the world. In the enduring struggle to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice, we all need to do our part to bend it. We must embrace and cherish our common humanity, vow never to grow complacent while other human beings are persecuted, and demonstrate the importance of extending an outstretched hand instead of a clenched fist. Thank you to Enough and the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee for your commitment to ensuring that one of the darkest chapters of history is not erased or forgotten, but rather serves as a reminder that we have a shared responsibility to push back against the forces of hatred and division. As you commemorate Human Rights Day, we're sending our very best wishes for a meaningful, affirming celebration. As 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of the Ugandan Asian expulsion, we are honored to introduce you to Newcastle resident and member of the Town of Newcastle's Holocaust and Human Rights Committee, Anuja Joshi, who will share her story.
Thank you. August 4th, 1972, Tororo, Uganda. Idi Amin, the president of Uganda, declares all Asians have 90 days to leave the country, their businesses, their homes, and their belongings, or face the fire. August 5th, 1972, Tororo, Uganda. my mother goes into labor. August 6th, 1972, I am born. We were forced to leave the place we had called home for 3 generations. Our families were scattered all over the world in search of asylum. Most went to the UK, a reminder of the colonial past, and yet others went to Sweden, Australia, Canada, and other countries. I could recount the historical data, including being seen as the Asian blight, or being the first non-Christian, non-white refugees to Canada, or the countless rags to riches tales of the Ugandan Asian refugees. But you can Google that. This is going to be my story of spending a large portion of my life discovering the feelings associated with being a refugee and trying to find a way to explain that. You see, a refugee is quite different from being an immigrant because historical events robbed my family of choices and freedoms. Historical events changed our what-ifs to what is. My parents were educated in Great Britain, and after finishing their studies, they returned to Africa as young professionals, newlyweds with promising careers and futures. Their grandparents, siblings, parents, and communities were all nearby. Life in this equatorial, beautiful country known as the Pearl of Africa was good. But in a blink, all that changed. They found themselves surrounded by strangers in an army barrack that had been converted to a refugee camp in Long Point, Quebec, with $50 and a baby in a basket. This is that basket, and I was that baby. This basket served as my home and all I have of that original home as we traveled from Africa to Canada. This was my home at that beginning few weeks in Canada. I brought it back with me from my mother's house this past Thanksgiving. This is my connection to my past. 50 years later, the basket is still strong, able to bend, yet a little worn. It reminds me of my parents. They were so strong, able to accept and be flexible, but also a little worn. My parents persevered and embraced their new country and new lives. They used their education to forge new paths. I imagine the paths were tortuous and lonely. We moved many, many times in search of work in small, strange towns, but they found jobs and made new friends to fill the void of the scattered family. They don't speak much of those initial difficult days or any hardships, but I am sure it took its toll. Instead, they recount stories from their idyllic childhood and happy times. They seldom discuss those 10 weeks before we left Africa, a time of chaos, fear, kidnappings, abuse at the hands of the army, and complete uncertainty of the future. They choose to remember the good, the people who helped us navigate the paperwork to obtain travel documents when we were considered stateless, the people who encouraged and assisted us in our new countries, the kindness of strangers. This is how they survived those grueling cold November days in Canada in an apartment that had no glass in the windows and a baby in a basket. I found out recently that I was one of 89 babies who came as refugees to Canada from Uganda. This information was bestowed upon me serendipitously by an embassy officer named Michael Malloy. He was sent to Uganda to interview the asylum seekers, determine if they qualified to be refugees in Canada, and he gave them a number. This number would be published in the national newspaper called the Argus if asylum was granted. My parents anxiously checked that paper every day, and then on October 25th, 1972, a few days before that 90-day cutoff, our number appeared. I'm so thankful that Michael Malloy took time out of his busy day to recount his experience and answer my many questions. 50 years later, I have this opportunity to share this story with you. December 14th, 2022, Chappaqua, New York. I am a refugee, a Canadian, an American, an African, a woman of South Asian descent. I am grateful to be here today, to be free, to have choices, and thankful that my children can dream not only of what is, but what if. We all have a story, and together we are creating a better world by sharing, listening, and may we always remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuja, for your incredible story and your bravery in sharing it. My name is Eliza Elbaum, and I am a vice president in the Enough Club. Now we are pleased to invite Westchester County Legislature Vidat Ghashi to share his story.
Does this one work as well? I guess not. So I'm going to go just this one. First off, what an amazing story. That was fantastic. And to have the actual basket, that is fantastic. Again, I'm awed by it. Honored to be here with you all. And I think going through my story and thinking about how I got here and the parallels between that and the Jewish experience during World War II, the Holocaust, and I guess the Asian experience in Africa and Ukraine now, we are reminded the incredible importance of remembering how many similarities there are in these stories. It's remarkable. My particular story, to give a little bit of historical context, and I say a little bit because I think sometimes it could be problematic, not least of which because it is complicated and long and it will put you all to sleep. A lot of people, when they talk about the history of Kosovo or Yugoslavia, they'll start with the date 1389. That's a 1389, and I hate it because 1389 was a long time ago. But also, what it marks is a battle between the Ottoman Turks were coming into Europe, and the Serbian king died in Kosovo. What it obscures, or what it neglects to mention, is that there were Albanian-speaking and Serbian-speaking people on both sides. And also will neglect to mention that in many ways it's irrelevant to the current situation. My challenge when I've been dealing with Kosovo issues has been that there's a tendency to speak about it as if it were a parking lot. And, this is my parking lot and not your parking lot. And what it neglects to remember is that there are people living there now, and that those people exist. And my family's experience was to be persecuted for existing. In World War I, something resembling Yugoslavia was put together. But really, in World War II, different areas came together to make Yugoslavia. There is, within the Serbian part of it, area, let's call it a state, that is 95% Albanian, ethnically distinct, religiously distinct, culturally distinct in a lot of ways. And in 1974, within Yugoslavia, was given some autonomy. They were able to have schools in their language. They were able to be employed, be a part of the society. And then, I'm giving you guys the real thumbnail sketch here, but at some point, they decided to take those rights away. You could no longer study in Albanian. You could no longer be employed by the state organization, which is a meaningful thing in a socialist state. So the end result, and those are the historical, but the actual result to me and my family was that my father, who was sincerely one of the smartest people I ever knew, only was able to graduate the 7th grade. My mother, the 6th grade. Ended up emigrating to the United States and finding success through the work, but that was a path denied to him in Kosovo. So for a long time, there was an apartheid-like situation in Kosovo, where, again, you couldn't study, you wouldn't be employed by you couldn't be employed by the state, and a lot of other challenges. And we think of it as sort of a cold or a soft, challenging time, which is a funny way of calling that apartheid. But then it became a more heated, violent experience. And I'd written down notes, and frankly, even some of those notes are a challenge because, again, we start dealing with numbers. And as with the Holocaust, there are people who will deny how many people died or deny the experience and deny how it happened. But by most reasonable estimates, between 10 and 25,000 people in Albania died. About that same amount was raped as a tool of war. And then about 850,000 people were displaced. And again, these numbers are numbers. It's hard to have them connect with you. I moved here when I was 4. My family came over. My dad and my mom and dad, and we had 5 kids. And their greatest joy, their biggest pride was the fact that we were able to be educated and find a way forward. They were happy and proud of the things that they accomplished, but our accomplishments were the biggest things to them, and that was something that was denied in Kosovo. And after the war, and I came to the United States. I was educated. I became a law student. I clerked for a judge, and I went back to Kosovo. 5 years, working with the United Nations, helping write the laws. I felt a responsibility, having been raised here, educated. There is this sort of survivor's guilt. Understanding that a lot of people who were politically active or in leadership responsibilities didn't make it. The Albanian saying for it is, they get rid of your cold, which is kind of a funny, I always find it so funny, but that was the saying. And then what it meant was, you will disappear, or you can, and you have to be careful. But there was a humor to it. There was that's the way that people dealt with these situations. Upon returning to Kosovo, I found, I reconnected with some cousins, guys about my age. And I said, during the war, where did you go? Because these displaced people, and you might have seen the images on CNN or media where there was throngs of masses of people lining up at Macedonia, where famously they were told, we are full, and they didn't want to let them in. I said, did you go to Macedonia? Did you go to Albania? Where'd you go? And the guy said, nowhere, we stayed here. They weren't one of the 850,000. I said, wow, that's amazing. Did you, so you fought? You were part of the resistance? He said, no, I didn't fight. And I said, well, what'd you do? And he says, well, if they were coming, they'd bring a tank, and we'd see the tank. And when we saw the tank, we would just load as much stuff as we could in the backpack and go hide out in the woods for a week or 2. And it's, again, these are people my age living now in Kosovo, and that was their experience. And I think there is a tendency, and maybe it's cultural as well, but to minimize it, to say, yeah, that was our experience. It wasn't great, but we did it and it's over and whatever. But doing so poses a danger, because there are people out there now who will deny these things happened. There's an instance today, or not today, this week, or last week. Some of the displaced Albanians ended up in Switzerland. So Switzerland's soccer team is about half Albanian American, or actually not anymore. Now, the two of their biggest stars are Albanians, or Albanian heritage. When Switzerland played Serbia, there were chants of kill all Albanians, and we need to take back that parking lot. They didn't call it a parking lot; they called it Kosovo. And at the same time, any Albanian flag was not allowed in the stadium at that time. That's sort of, to my mind, a false equivalence. Is, again, a problem. You should be proud, allowed to be proud of who you are and where you're from, or existing. I always talk about when we came to the United States, we came on a visitor's visa and overstayed. We were illegal, what we called then illegal, undocumented immigrants. It was the thing that makes this country so great is you have the opportunity. You're not going to be given everything all the time. And certainly there's intolerance, hatred, and nonsense here as well. But you, at your base, have the opportunity to exist, to achieve, and to be who you are. I'm proud of my Albanian heritage, but at the same time, incredibly proud to be an American because of what we've found here. I am now feeling like I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop talking. But I look forward to speaking with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Vedat, for sharing your inspiring story with us today. My name is Benny Prober. I'm a vice president of the Enough Club. Next, we'd like to invite Svetlana Kolobova with her translator, Lana Heiken, to share her story with us.
Hello. Прошу прощения за то, что буду читать. Я очень нервничаю и буду сразу говорю плакать.
She said, I apologize for, because I'm going to be reading, she's very nervous and she prepared something to say and she's going to cry and she apologizes ahead of time.
Okay, start. My name is... I'm sorry. Меня зовут Светлана Колобова. Я из Украины, Сумы регион, Глухов мой город. У меня есть муж и сын Игорь, ему 12 лет. Всю совместную жизнь прожили в родном городе. Строили дом, а с ними планы на будущее.
Hi, my name is Svetlana Kolobova. I'm from Ukraine, from Sumy region. I have a husband and a son who is right here. His name is Ihor. All our lives, we lived in one town, building a house and planning our future.
Ничего не предвещало беды, но 24 февраля 2022 года, в 4 часа утра, 15 минут, мы проснулись от непрекращающих мощных взрывов, летающих над нами, над нашим домом, самолетов и ракет, которые бомбили стратегически важные объекты и просто дома мирных людей.
Nothing foreshadowed trouble, but on February 24th, 2022, 4:15 in the morning, we were woken up by multiple severe explosions, airplanes flying over our house, and rockets bombing strategical targets as well as regular houses with regular people.
С такого ужасного утра началась моя новая реальность в Украине.
From this morning, my new reality in Ukraine started.
Наш город находится 18 километров от границы с Россией. Поэтому их войска оказались возле нашего города всего лишь за считанные минуты.
Our town is situated around 18 kilometers from the Russian border, and therefore their army was in our town within a few minutes.
Русские войска взорвались в Украину с огромными количествами военной техники и оружия, которые убивали как военные, так и мирных людей.
Russian army invaded Ukraine with a lot of war equipment and weapons, and used them to kill military targets as well as just civilian population.
Потом были несколько недель оккупации Сумской области и нашего города. Очень быстро закончились продукты в магазинах, лекарства и горючее на заправках.
After that, they lived through a few weeks of occupation of their town and Sami region, and pretty soon the stores were out of food, the pharmacies were out of medicine, and the gas station did not have any gas for their cars.
Вокруг не умолкали звуки тяжелой артиллерии. Все были в ужасе. Войска России уничтожали целые города, безжалостно убивали мирные жителей, насиловали женщин, детей, стариков.
Everybody was really scared. They lived through constant shelling and bombing, and Russian military destroyed cities, towns, and killed civilians, raped women, children, and old people.
На тот момент жертвами стали десятки тысяч убитых мирных жителей, тысячи изнасилованных, а также сотни тысяч насильно депортованных на территорию России в самые депрессивные регионы.
At this time, victims were thousands of killed civilians, thousands of people were raped, and hundreds of thousands were deported without their will to the Russian territories, the most depressed and cold and far Russian territories.
Мой сын и я были в ужасе, но самое страшное было впереди. Голод, обстрелы.
My son and I were scared, but we didn't know that the most terrible things were ahead of us. Hunger, constant shelling.
И бесчисленных русской армии относительно мирных жителей заставляли покинуть родной город моего мужа.
And outrage of Russian army toward just civilians and peaceful citizens made them leave their town and her husband behind.
Но путь был очень опасный. Оккупанты безжалостно обстреливали тысячи граждан, автомобили с надписью «Дети» и убивали целые семьи.
Their way was very dangerous. Their road was very dangerous, and Russians didn't stop bombing and shelling civilian cars and even cars with that says "kids" on it.
11 марта мы решили на этот смертельный опасный путь. Сквозь оккупированные территории, области, через блокпосты оккупантов, которые грозились расстрелять нас.
On March 11th, we've decided to leave, and we decided to take this dangerous way through occupied territories, through blocks, posts, where the Russian army threatened to kill everyone, past tanks, past helicopters flying on top of them through battlefields, and that was the most terrible days of her life.
Мимо танков, вертолетов, через поля сражений. Это были самые ужасные дни в нашей жизни. Мы понимали, что в любой момент наша жизнь может закончиться. Это кошмарное чувство, которое пережил мой 12-летний сын и получил непоправимую психологическую травму.
We understood that in any moment our life could end, and this terrible feeling that we had and that we went through. Her and her husband, and they got like very terrible psychological trauma.
Нам повезло, мы смогли выбраться, и сейчас в безопасности. Но мой муж остался в Украине, и мы очень переживаем за него.
They were lucky. They made it here, and they're in safety right now. But her husband and her father are still there, and they're worried about him every day.
Война в Украине продолжается, растет численное военные преступления оккупантов России. Все так же убивают, насилуют, грабят, депортируют украинцев.
The war in Ukraine continues. They continue to kill, rape, and deport civilian citizens.
Это безжалостный геноцид украинского народа.
This is genocide of Ukrainian people.
Хочу поблагодарить всех добрых людей, которые встретились на нашем пути. Всех людей, которые помогают мне и моему сыну.
I wanted to say thank you to all the good people who I met on my way here. All people who helped me here, and me and my son.
Этот путь очень сложный, и нужно.
It's a very difficult way.
И нужно понимать одну вещь: когда ты засынаешь, ты можешь проснуться в совсем другой реальности.
And you have to understand one thing: when you fall asleep at night, you can wake up to a very different reality.
Спасибо тебе, Света, за перевод. Спасибо каждому.
Thanks everyone who come here.
Thank you, Svetlana, for having the courage to share your story with our community. My name is Robin Kiles, and I'm a student liaison from the Enough Club to the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee.
Hi, my name is Josh Lundgren, and I am also a student liaison from the Enough Club to the Town of Newcastle and Human Rights Committee. Now we have a question that we would like to direct to each of the panelists. Based off your experiences, do you have any recommendations for our community to make refugees feel more at home? Anuja, would you like to answer first? Anuja.
Thank you. I think I don't have as much experience because I don't remember, but I think if, as a community, if we can be open-minded and allow for people who are refugees to tell their stories and feel connected and feel at home, they have left places where their homes were and find themselves in a completely new place, to allow them to have opportunities and to listen. And if we can help in any way to ease the anxiety and to give them hope. And sometimes it feels hopeless, I'm sure.
Svetlana, would you like to answer next?
Нужно понимать, что мы совсем другие люди, и для вас обычная вещь, для нас это очень сложный путь.
You have to understand that we are different people. We come from different culture, and whatever is like regular and everyday for you, for us is very different.
Также тяжело с языком, и нужно относиться не то чтобы с пониманием, а просто нужно время.
We don't speak the language, and we need time to adjust, and people should understand that we need time.
И человек, который беженец, ну, в моем случае, мы очень получили большую психологическую травму, и нам теперь еще раз сложнее.
And she says that in her case, she's a refugee, and her trauma, she's coming from with a lot of trauma, and it makes her adjustment even harder, and she just wants people to understand that.
Но то, как мне помогают люди, я могу сказать, они совсем справляются. Спасибо.
And she says that she's getting a lot of help with people, and they're doing a really good job, and she's just thankful.
And finally, we'd love to hear from you, Vedant.
Thank you. I'm afraid I'm going into a political answer here, because I think a lot of us know what's required, the kindness, compassion. The people in this room clearly get it. And frankly, we have historical precedents for why we get it. The fact that it keeps happening again and again, people in this room, I think, will recognize why it's so important that we do the things that we're doing, welcoming people who are having the harder time. I think I would maybe turn the question around a little bit and say not what the community could be doing, but the sincere obligation to the refugees, to the people, frankly, like Svetlana. I always found myself incredibly lucky, privileged to be here. And I remember a law school professor telling me, whether you like it or not, you are an ambassador for your people. You are the only Albanian person here. The person doesn't know another Albanian. If you are a jerk, they're going to think all Albanians are jerks. And if you're a good person, they're going to think, oh, Albanians are wonderful. But more than that, it is incredibly difficult to share the stories as Svetlana did. I think amazing, again. Thank you, Svetlana, for sharing your story, really. It's a lot easier to blend in, to be quiet and to hide. And I think your experience, or the experience, the persecution, the challenge that you had in the place that you came from would probably lead you to that conclusion. But what I have found is the incredible strength and value of the exact opposite, of making your story known, making who you are known, and being proud of it and sharing with it. I think we are a country of immigrants. That's why Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. Sorry, Christmas lovers, and Hanukkah, I guess. But it's we value and we understand that diversity is our strength. So we as a community know, even if we don't always exhibit those qualities, we know. I think what's important is that people like myself, my family, and others, recognizing the responsibility that comes from the good fortune and the opportunity you have, and that responsibility is the difficult task of sharing that message with others.
Thank you to our panelists for sharing your incredible and moving stories with our community tonight. It is my hope, as co-president of Enough, that we will take their stories to heart and change both our community and country into a place fully ready to supply refugees with the American dream that Anuja, Representative Vedat Ghoshi and his family, Svetlana, my ancestors, and I imagine many of yours came to America desiring. Now, we are honored to introduce Town Supervisor Lisa Katz.
So I had something prepared, which I will read, but before I get to that, I'm so touched hearing these stories today, and it makes me just want to remind us all here how lucky we are to not have faced this and to live where we are free and we're not generally persecuted, and how important it is for us to make sure that we are upstanders. And we say that all the time, but we need to speak out against injustice everywhere, so that the people we hear tonight don't have to face this ever again. So, that being said, I want to say thank you to the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee and the Horace Greeley High School Enough Club. All of you students here today just bring so much hope for the future of our country and this world, so thank you. And also a special thank you to our county legislator, Vedat Ghoshi, our Holocaust and Human Rights Committee member and resident, Anusha Joshi, and Svetlana Kolovova for sharing your experiences as refugees tonight. So I'm reminded this evening that a foundation of what makes Newcastle so special here is our desire to work together to create a united, welcoming, and inclusive community where people of all backgrounds can put down roots, thrive, and belong. And we know that, especially hearing this tonight, that's more important than ever. Through our Holocaust and Human Rights Committee, our Committee on Race, Equity, and Inclusion, and with the full support of town government, being welcoming spans all political beliefs, religion, race, ethnicity, and citizenship to create a sense of home by encouraging and supporting social, civic, and economic participation in town. Especially during this holiday season, it is incumbent upon each of us to remember to embody love, kindness, empathy, and hope, because all of us are welcome here in Newcastle. That being said, if anybody does know refugees in town, I would love you to email me personally. Let me know, because we have resources in town. We have people who can reach out to make sure that everybody does feel welcomed and included, and that's so important here in our town. So again, I want to thank all our speakers tonight. I want to thank the Enough Club and our Holocaust and Human Rights Committee, and you really make my heart full knowing that we can rely on you and all of you to help make the world a better place. So thank you.
Thank you, Town Supervisor Katz, for your leadership in Newcastle. As we conclude tonight's program, we want to thank again our panelists, Vedat Ghoshi, Anuja Joshi, and Svetlana Kolobova, for inspiring us to create a more welcoming community for all.
If you're looking for additional ways to help refugees who are entering our community, please contact the Westchester Jewish Coalition for Immigration. There are pamphlets and flyers about this incredible organization on the bake sale table in the lobby for you to pick up on your way out.
Thank you for supporting our event this evening. We hope you join us at our next event on Thursday, January 26th, commemorating International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We hope you have a safe drive home.
Thank you.